because Ed, a big story, and it started about yesterday or the day before. And Paddy, this is an interesting one. You may have seen something about it. It relates to a grammar school in a town called Batley in the north of England. And Ed and Jed, by the way, that's like
separated at birth.
You should give us a song, you two. Ed and Jed. But so this grammar school, a teacher in this grammar school, in I think it was religious studies ed class or whatever. Anyway, he showed the class a couple of cartoons of Muhammad, the Charlie Hebdo cartoons, and then all hell broke loose. Ed, do you want to talk us through this one? Because it's a big story.
Yeah, I think the actual incident happened on Monday, but it didn't kick up until yesterday.
Yeah,
I think I'm correct on that. So, I mean, there's a number of kind of aspects to this whole story, isn't there? There's the thing of, was he right to show this cartoon in a religious studies class? Now, anybody who's a libertarian or values free speech or freedom would say that, of course, you know, you have to offend people in any functioning democracy to share ideas and have healthy debate and challenge people. And, you know, nobody has the right not to be offended. So there's that element to it. And there's the element of, you know, and we don't know the details, should he have given the heads up to pupils that might have been upset, let them go out. So that's all one side of it. And the facts aren't known, despite what people are saying. That's not really come out as yet. So we'll park that. But for me, the kind of really eye-opening or alarming element to this were the mob on the school gates intimidating the kids and the teachers and making demands. And for 2 days now, we've seen West Yorkshire Police do nothing, just not tackle them at all. Yeah. Students reported that some of them were carrying knives, not seeing that followed up by the police. Making demands, demanding somebody is sacked and fired without any due process, or nobody's pushing back on that. Nobody's telling them, hang on a minute, that's not for you to make that decision. You know, that is. And then you see these kind of activist groups and people and like Baroness Warsi and people like that not being helpful. You know, there should be a unified voice here to say, hang on a minute, you know, something has happened here that we don't know all the details on, but it isn't illegal. Nobody has the right not to be offended in the UK over anything religious or whatever it might be. And you don't go making demands and threatening people. And of course, it's the more the anger grows, we've now had death threats. The poor teacher has had to go into hiding. He's been thrown under the bus by his headmaster, who immediately suspended him rather than stand behind him and say, you know, just a really poor sequence of events that actually have emboldened the mob yet again, that actually if we kick up enough fuss, we can get our way. And that is just a dangerous message. So it's like a skirmish. And if we concede to the mob on this, it'll happen again and again and again. So quite eye-opening, quite an alarming series of events, and craven cowardice and weakness from both the authorities, the head teacher, and I've got to say the politicians. You know, I keep saying this, we've got a Tory government that is anything but a Tory government. You know, these things need nipping in the bud, and they're just not. They're allowed to fester. So that's my 2 pence.
I got a question, Ed. Especially with all the restrictions on your speech on that side of the pond, didn't somebody dox this teacher, say where his name, where he lived, and everything else? That they had to move his family because they were getting terroristic threats at his house because they publicly announced where this guy lived.
Yeah, so there's a charity
that's threatening.
A charity called Freedom of Life, I think it was called, where the chair, a registered charity, and the chair, whose name escapes me, is being platformed right across the media. And as of when I last looked, his tweet is still up that names the teacher, despite you know, volumes of people saying take this down immediately. There's, you know, this guy's life is in danger. And yeah, you're right, Paddy. The police have had to put him in a secure location.
But have they done anything to the guy who doxed them?
No, and this is it. And nor the people making
the damn tweet. No,
nor the people making the threat. You know, there should be an investigation. We saw what happened to Samuel Paty in France, and you know, and he actually, it came out there. Actually, he hadn't done what he was accused of. It was a pupil had made it up. It was a malicious thing that happened there. So very, very irresponsible. But again, the media very irresponsible to platform somebody who's acted in such a manner. And yeah.
It's pretty shocking. Can I just say a warm hello to our Hawaiian regular visitor on the stream, Donnie Girl, all the way from Hawaii. Apparently, she's watching the live feed, Paddy, from the border with some of the, I think it's the Republican senators going down there to look at
Ted Cruz and like 18 others.
Yeah, hopefully to look at cages and cry. But anyway, Jed, back on topic. So I thought, Jed, that we have COVID restrictions in this country. And those COVID restrictions, for example, prevent groups of people coming together. And yet, when we look at this school, Batley Grammar School, and we've seen the feed, there's a large group of very non-diverse, has to be said, overwhelmingly men, not many women in that particular group, Jed. Here we go, yeah. I mean, okay, I'll just hand it over. Jed, comments on that, please.
The thing is, David, I've been watching this, and I know you've done a couple of small videos on it. Guys, go and watch them; they're brilliant. And I watched a very interesting interview this morning with Julie Hartley Brewer on Talk Radio, and she interviewed one Muslim gentleman who I would say was certainly right-leaning. He was from some institute, and he thought it was absolutely outrageous of what was going on, the fact that the teacher couldn't show these had shown he wasn't offended by the cartoons, and he understood why they were shown. But then, so he had about 5 minutes on this interview, and then straight after that, she had this other Muslim gentleman on, who instantly started, rather than debate the subject, he was debating the other guest, and he was calling him out for this, that, and the other. And Julia, in the end, the interview with this second guy lasted 15 minutes. And she just kept saying, answer my question. Stop slagging off my other guest. Answer the question. And he wouldn't answer the question. It is outrageous, David.
Yeah, can I ask, was it that in the comment from Graham here below, it says, was that the guy called Muhammad Shafiq of the Ramadan Ding Dong?
Yes, he was.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Let me tell you a little bit of Muhammad, because Muhammad has encountered me a couple of times on media, and he is extremely shady character. Let's call it no more than that, shall we? And you know, people like that do nothing but spread division. And actually, I see a couple of comments here in the stream, because we've had a lot of these incidents sort of happening. Funny enough, since Biden came in, we've had, for example, Paddy, the shooting in Boulder in Colorado. We now have this event in Batley, where all of a sudden we've got enraged Muslims protesting. It is. Oh, thanks, by the way, Billy Piper. Billy says, you buried him on the battlefield, David. That's why they banned you. Yeah, victory for me. I don't have to go on crappy mainstream media anymore. I can have proper conversations with proper people like we have on the stream. But yeah, so you know, you do wonder about, you know, all of a sudden it's like we're back in the Obama age again. Paddy.
You know, the whole thing, everything's just like they just want to shut off the last 4 years, and they have, and everything is going back exactly the way it is. And so you're going to see what's going on. You had a beige Muslim man shoot 10 white people, and they're screaming, the guy lived. It had to be a white man that killed it. You know, let's get the facts out, and you also too is like, you know, they want to charge the guy who is addicted to the prostitutes down in Florida, because most of the prostitutes were of one, racial denomination that he killed, and they wanted to make that a hate crime. Now, this guy in Boulder, everybody he killed was white, and majority of them were white women. He killed 7 white women, and they're dead. No hate crime there. Excuse me. I mean, this guy ran around screaming that he was going to, if you said anything wrong against him, he was going to turn you in for a Muslim hate crime. But this guy shoots a whole bunch of white people, guns down 7 white women and 3 white men. And, and some of and ranging in age from like 15 to 70. I mean, this guy was just, if you were white, he shot you. That was his only qualifying thing. And he gave himself bonus points for women. But there's not been a single mention of a hate crime or an act of terror or an act of anything. The law is not equal anymore. And that's what's going, that's what you're leading. People are getting very worried about the United States. And the more you got to watch is it's the prosecutions. Like, they're hunting down everybody that was, at the January 6th rally. I was there. I was nowhere near any riots or anything else, but I was there, and they're using phone geolocation for that, which is a FISA warrant. I want to see that warrant. Who signed it? What are the grounds? Because they're pulling people left and right who were nowhere. It did not go into the Capitol and stuff. But yet all summer long, we had over $3 billion worth of damage. We had 30 cops wound up, 30 people wound up dead, and that's okay.
But Paddy, you mentioned there, the guy, the shooter, the Syrian refugee who showed his gratitude to the US by killing 10 people. But Ed, I think on Twitter, this event showed Twitter, or certainly showed the feral left on Twitter for what they were. And I think you were very good at identifying some of the blue check marks and others who were instantly, like, to Paddy's point, instantly saying, yeah, this is a white supremacist, definitely a white supremacist. And then, whoops, were they caught out. Ed?
Yeah, well, this is it. I think even Kamala Harris's niece jumped straight to it's a white person. And the thing is, and this again, we talked about fact checkers before, none of this stuff's actually based in reality. So just as an example, I don't know if you saw the picture of all the mass shooters over the last year that were put out. And a mass shootings, 4 or more people. That's the categorization for a mass shooting. It used to be 3, but it's now 4. And actually, there's a movement from the left to increase it to 5, because 4 is a lot of gang shootings are caught up in that.
4 or 5 had a shot on front. So 5 minutes in Chicago.
So if you look at the pictures of the mass shooters, I would, at an estimate, say 80 to 90% of them were either Hispanic or black, not white at all. So the whole thing is based not factually whatsoever. You kind of hear about some of them, but there's been a load of mass shootings this year and you don't hear about them. So yes, all this jump to it's white people. Again, we can't get away from it. It goes back to the media. And it's the same with the Asian, one Paddy talked about in Florida. Again, the statistics don't bear that out. The most hate crime against the Asian community comes from the black community, not the white community. So all this, the white people are the only bad guys here, isn't based in anything like reality or fact. And nobody's calling it out. The media is spreading the lie. The fact checkers ignore it. The politicians go along with it.
If you call them out, they try to destroy you. If you want to speak the truth is verboten. We live in, what do you call it? We live in what, we used to laugh at the Soviet Union with Pravda, but Washington Post and New York Times are Pravda. Pravda did better news stories than they're doing.
You have to start from a foundation of fact and truth, and we've lost that, so it's very then hard to go forward from there and deal with issues when it's a foundation built on sand, isn't it? It's not based on reality or truth. And that's all we want. I think the 4 of us on here, it's not an agenda here. All we like to do is deal with reality, facts and truth, we're not in that world.
Well, that's right, Jed, because ultimately if you know, I don't care about people's feelings or what they think about things. I care about facts. Facts are basically all that matters. And yet, Ed's right. We are most definitely in a fact-free world, which is very disturbing, I think, for a lot of people.
It is disturbing, of course it is, and we've had this creep, haven't we? And I would, you know, you could go back perhaps 30 years or even 20 years. I mean, we've had this creep, and I think Ed mentioned it earlier. The media in us, because our journalists, whether they're in print or on the TV, they are the ones that are supposed to sift through everything that's being said and present us with facts. But as we've discussed many times on your stream, David, that we no longer have journalists. You know, we have activists that are pretending to be journalists. You know, and you had on Lana Marcia on your premiere on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And she mentioned, you know, that the BBC has a couple of good journalists. And I don't wish to diss her because it's her perception, and that is fine. And perhaps she's right. There are still one or two good journalists out there. But if you take one or two out of hundreds that we have, whether it's in print media or on TV or on the radio, they're failing everybody because they don't present facts at all. They show us and they push their agenda.
Yeah, you're right. Doniger refers to them as the New York Slimes and the Washington Compost. Actually, on the subject of the Washington Post, isn't it? I saw they actually had a headline out hailing, unbelievably, seriously hailing the Biden press conference. Did you see it?
Yeah, you know, honestly, it's just sad.
It's done.
Washington Post is responsible for the state of journalism as it is today. That's where that's where, see what you call, you use this word journalist. A journalist to me is, you know, that's a dirty word, because if you're a journalist, what you are is you're an opinion writer. That's all you are. You're an opinion writer. A reporter gives facts. Now we all don't mind if you lean left, you lean right, you know, you lean wackadoodle. Who cares? Report the facts. Be a reporter. Now, journalists give their opinion and slide in the facts to match how they want you to view it. Journalism, is a disgrace to the business. We've lost the fourth estate, and there's nobody looking out for the people. They're instead, what all they're doing is pushing their agenda, their philosophy. I don't mind you pushing your agenda and your philosophy, but how about a little bit of facts of what's actually going on too?
Well, this is exactly the reason why some years ago now, because time moves so quickly, Ed and myself, and indeed you, Paddy, as well, came together to create Alt News Media, only out of a sense of complete and utter frustration at what you've just described, Paddy. These, I call them partisan hacks, who have completely dishonored their so-called profession. You know, I have nothing but contempt for the media. But that's right, Ed. That's how Alt News Media came into being, by the way, folks. Out of our alarm at that.
Yeah, and I think, you know, look at, you know, I mean, their dishonesty has huge ramifications. If you look at the impeachment a few months back, or, you know, attempted impeachment, the Washington Post printed the story from an unnamed source, which immediately says it's made up, but an unnamed source that Trump phoned Georgia and said, find me some votes, and basically put it across as though he made this phone call and said, you know, illegally find some. And then I think it was a couple of weeks ago, they had to print an admission that there was no foundation for that story whatsoever. But of course, the damage is done. The tiny little apology or whatever, nobody sees. It's never reported. The BBC don't suddenly decide to, oh, we better cover that with the same gusto as we covered the original lie. So they know what they're doing. It's a game that they play, and they're happy to put out dishonesty, which isn't verified, isn't backed up, knowing they can put a little apology in a couple of months' time. But the damage has been done. You know, the ship has sailed at that point. So there's no accountability. And I'm all for a free press. You know, I don't know what the answer is here, but there must be some consequence for that level of dishonesty.
There's only one answer, and that's like things like platforms like alt news media and other platforms and these things like this. The problem is being able to get our word out when you have people that actually like can throw your whole corporation, off the internet. It's outrageous. But the only way there is no longer what these news organizations have no interest in reporting the factual events that are taking place. All they're interested in doing is reporting how do we spin this to meet where we want to take them, not let them get wherever they want to get on their own.
They are also full of woke, the most wokest imaginable. I put out a little video there a couple of hours ago on the British media, and I'll tell you what the reason I did it. That you'll all be familiar with the Meghan and Harry, the Oprah love-in when millionaires met a billionaire. That was such a touching moment. But one of the things that came out of that was the accusation that British press were bigoted. Now, I think the British press is pretty hateful. I think they are certainly deceitful. I think there's lots of things about them, but they're not bigoted. Broadly speaking, they're not bigoted. But what happened was the chairman of the Society of Editors. So this is like a board of representing all the press here in the UK, Paddy. They all the top guy put out a press release refuting the accusation from Prince Harry and Meghan Markle that the British press were bigoted. He then had to fall on his sword within a couple of hours and resign. He had to resign. And then the next day, hundreds of British journalists came out and said, "Oh yeah, the newsrooms are full of my racism, my bigotry." This that completely enrages me. That's why I put a little video out on it. And then today, he resigned. They all came out and said, "Yeah, there's bigotry, racists under the table, around the corner, everywhere." And then today, another board member of the same Society of Editors, she's resigned because the apology wasn't enough. And here's the punchline. You never apologize on these people. You never concede an inch, because once you do, they bank that and they move on. Isn't that the truth, Ed?
Absolutely. Never apologize, never back down. But you're dead right. I mean, there's laws against things like racism. They can't print, it just doesn't happen and couldn't happen. It's all narrative. The thing I think that frustrates me is the hyper sensationalizing of everything. So take the Piers Morgan thing when he walked off stage. I'm not his biggest fan, but at the end of the day, he expressed an opinion on an opinion show, which, right or wrong, he expressed an opinion. So how have we ended up in a world where you express your personal opinion and you end up, your job becomes untenable and you leave your job? How has that world come about? And it's come about because of the media. They encourage demonization of people that don't follow their mantra. And it's a warning shot. Whenever somebody loses a job for something, the BBC, Sky, they all put it to the top of their news feed as the headline, forced to leave the job, because what they're doing is basically saying, look what happens if you don't toe the line. If you express your opinion and it's not the opinion, be it on climate or whatever it might be, trans issues and all that kind of thing, that, that's the end of your life as you know it if you've got a job. And that's, again, at the door of the media. They hyper sensationalize everything and made it to the point where giving an opinion is suddenly, you've got to stop and think about it. Is this going to cost me my job? Crazy, absolutely crazy.
I think, Jed, it's not even opinion. It's just facts. If you state facts now are problematical in their language, So you can't say certain things that we all know, because if you say them, then you're going to be labeled racist or a bigot or whatever it is. And as Ed says, you're going to be deplatformed.
Yes, you are. We've just gone full circle. Ed said earlier, didn't he, that we don't have facts. We just deal in emotions and agendas and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Where did we naturally get our facts from? And I'm just going to slightly exclude the USA at the moment, Paddy, and you'll understand why. In the UK, we used to have a BBC that you could trust with news. And it would be factual news every single time, 6 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 1 o'clock, the three main times that they would have the big broadcasts on, and it would be fact-based. It is no longer fact-based because we have activists, not journalists. And what has Sky done? You thought, well, if we get Sky News in it, 24-hour news with Sky News, we'd have so much facts that we'd be drowning in them. But again, we're not. We're not drowning in facts. We're drowning in activism for whatever the cause is. And you're right. I watch your videos, obviously, David, and you state facts, particularly, let's say COVID. You state facts on COVID, from Euromomo constantly.
Yeah.
But the press won't give those facts because they go against the narrative that every single person that ever comes in contact with anybody dies.
Right.